Thank you so much, Abhishek, for being here, and congratulations on being an icon of excellence.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's a bit embarrassing. But
Why?
these names I find very, yeah. I
But-
mean, seeing the luminaries in this room today, I don't think I've really earned anything of it, but I will try.
Absolutely not. You're an icon.
We'll
and
work in reverse. I've got the award and I'll try and live up to it.
That's well put. You know, you had a lovely conversation around film that you're doing. So, and of course, you've had a phenomenal career. But I think what stands out for me when I look at your career, is the fact that you've sort of been a path breaker when it comes to some choices that you've made across, not just films, everything, I feel. Where does that appetite for trying something new sort of come from? If you can reflect back on your journey just a little bit.
It comes from the inspiration in this room, and I see the wonderful variety of work that everybody does, and I see what all they achieve and create, and I feel very enamored, I feel inspired, because I feel here I am, 25 years, I'm in the family business, parents have been in the business for 55 years plus. We should do other stuff as well. You know, I get inspired from all of them, the way they work, on what they work, and I just feel that I'd probably get very bored being unidimensional. I like the challenge. I enjoy variety. I think that reflects in maybe some of the films that I've chosen to do.
Yes.
I like to push the boundaries. I like to take risks. And, but it all starts from, does your heart lie in what you want to do?
Very true.
And so I think maybe just my impatience has pushed me to do this. Everything I've done in life starts with film and movies. And we grow up watching wonderful movies. We grow up watching, you know, Amitabh Bachchan bring an ambulance to a fight in Trishul for the people he's going to be beating up. And, you know, you get inspired by that. Not to go take an ambulance and beat up people, but just the audacity of what the man wanted to do. And a scene that left an indelible mark in my heart was in a movie he did called Diwar, where he buys this one building. And the person who sold him the building says, you know, I'm sorry, I have to tell you, you're a very bad businessman. And you've paid, in those days, in the 70s, lakhs was a lot of rupees. And he said, you've paid several lakhs above what I would have sold for.
Yeah.
And my dad's reaction was, actually, you're the bad businessman, because had you asked for even 10 lakhs more, I would have paid it, because there's an emotional connect. My mother helped build this building, and I promised myself when she used to be a construction worker that one day I'd buy this building for her.
Wow.
What that taught me was that there was an emotion behind the business. It wasn't just about the balance sheet. And that really formed an integral part of my decision-making to do what I do. If your heart isn't in it, then what's the point of doing it?
Absolutely. Was that also the thought behind, you know, the jump towards OTT as well? Because, I mean, when you made your debut on OTT, it was a time when not too many mainstream actors were, you know, taking that risk. Is that where, was that the same thought process?
Maybe not entirely. Yeah, I was one of the first film actors that went on to do a series on OTT. I did a series called Breathe on Amazon, and it did very, very well for them, thankfully. For me, at that point, it was exciting creatively. I believe that the approach to film and OTT is very, very different. The writing process is very different. I think OTT, because it's a longer format, where you have several episodes. When I did Breathe It, there were 1-hour episodes. First season was 12 episodes. So you have 12 hours to tell a story. In film, you get an average of 2.5 to 3 hours to tell your story in entirety, achieve poetic justice, finish your character arc, and be able to convince the audience of what your character should be doing. 2.5 hours as opposed to 12 hours. So you can really deep dive into the nuances of a character. So that's what excited me about OTT, where I was getting a longer format where I could maybe take some more time with my character and work on that. So that excited me. Plus, that was the new horizon to conquer, right? Yeah. And I thought that that's going to be beneficial in the future, so why not try it? it didn't really make a difference that others weren't doing it. It was just something that excited me. And then obviously the pandemic happened and OTT went through the roof. But luckily by then you were already an established force. So I did 4 films on OTT, which were made for theaters but had to release directly there. So it just went from there.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to steer towards more Forbes territory now, and look at you as an investor. You invested in platforms like Swiggy and Zepto way before quick commerce became such a big deal. What did you see that maybe lots of others missed?
You're not going to like my answer.
No, that's fine.
It's not
I'm
very
sure
Forbes.
I will. That's fine.
I've said this before. They got me my missile power on time, so that was why. It was very simple. I enjoyed using the product. It benefited me in my day-to-day life and made my life a lot easier, which is what a lot of you are doing so wonderfully. They're making life so convenient for us. And that's literally why I really liked it. So I said, hey guys, can I be involved in any which way? And they were kind enough to allow me to.
How nice. Are you also someone who, follows your gut when it comes to such decisions and doesn't look at spreadsheets and numbers as much?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like I said, in your first question, I'm somebody who believes that if your heart isn't into it, then it doesn't matter if the balance sheet and the spreadsheets are great. I'm not going to be invested in it emotionally.
Yeah.
For me, maybe being an actor or being a creative person, that emotionality makes a big difference. I'm not able to alienate myself and just be very cutthroat business about it. So for me, it's always been my gut.
But it's quite a big risk also, right? Do you look for, a little bit in terms of the returns on investment as well?
No risk, no reward. I mean, you've got better examples sitting here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Another very interesting thing was when it comes to sports and owning a lot of teams, Jaipur Pink Panthers is doing phenomenally well. There's Chennai FC. Tell us a little bit before that. Again, this was, sports entrepreneurship is something that you again jumped into very early on. What gave you the confidence? Was it just passion for sports?
Yeah, just passion. Okay. I've been a keen sportsman in my younger days. I'm sure your host will be happier to hear that. But I always wanted to do something with sports in India.
Okay.
I spent a sizable amount of my childhood in Europe in boarding school, where there was a thriving infrastructure for school and collegiate sports. And I really felt that we had huge talent. And it actually... I always wanted to, once I became an actor, I said, okay, first let me establish myself as an actor. Let me get some financial freedom.
Okay.
That maybe I can start looking at different horizons. Sports was always one of them because that's something that I loved playing and I wanted to do something with and help in some kind of way. But the final push was actually given to me by Mr. Sepp Blatter, who was the then very controversial chairman of FIFA.
Okay.
At the World Cup in Rio. We happened to be having a meal together, and his opening statement to me, I thought was, it hurt. He said, at that point in time, 1.2 billion people, you can't put 11 boys on a pitch. And I was like, wow, that's harsh, but it was true.
Yeah.
At that point in time, second largest population in the world, and we haven't qualified for the World Cup. And I said, hey, we should do something about this, And everything starts with, in my opinion, in sports, with infrastructure. To reference a very famous film that I hope you all have seen, I did when I was growing up, called Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. It's a wonderful film, inspirational. He's a huge basketball fan, and there's a very famous line which a lot of actors quote, in which they say, if you build it, they will come. So my whole thing was, you need to improve the infrastructure. We need to invest in these sports.
Yeah.
We need to, at that point of time in India, sports wasn't really a viable career option.
Yes.
It's still considered khel kood.
Yeah.
I wanted to change that thought process to prove that, yes, you can make this into a viable career. But for that, there has to be investment. Corporations have to get involved to show that there is a long-term plan. This is something that you can earn money as an athlete and make a career out of. And then once you are done playing, you can further that by getting back into the sport in a different capacity. So that's when we came back, and Mr. Anand Mahindra was kind enough to reach out to me one day. I have huge admiration for him. He's just absolutely brilliant, and we always talk about basketball, which is actually my first love.
Wow.
And he came and said, hey, I know you're into basketball, but have you ever thought about kabaddi? So I said, yeah, my dad had taught me kabaddi when I was a kid, but what do you mean? He's like, no, we're starting a professional league. Would you like to buy a team? So I was like, that's a bit left field. Okay, let me think about it. And I went back to my team and we did a bit of research. I went to see a local tournament happening just behind my house, about 100, 200 meters from my house. It was in a chawl. They were playing on the mud, and there were at least 10,000 people watching.
Wow.
And that just blew me away. And I said, here's a sport that just doesn't have the spotlight on it.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what the Pro Kabaddi League did. And today it's the second most watched tournament in India after the IPL.
Amazing.
It's huge. And it's our sport.
Feat.
It's indigenous. It's a great sport.
Yeah.
Football, having gone to a British boarding school, is something that was part of your blood.
Yeah.
And then the ISL came about.
Yes.
And me and my co-founder, Vita, we invested in the Chennai team, named it Chennai NFC. We won the cup twice. It's very, very rewarding. And I think what we've realized is if you put in the money, that thought process changes. I mean, I think of my kabaddi players, and I remember in season 1, when we had the first ever auction, the then captain of India, Rakesh Kumar, who's a legend of the sport, was very emotional after he was bought by the Patna Pirates. And he was bought for a princely sum of 11 lakhs.
Wow.
And he had tears in his eyes because he said, I've never seen so many zeros in my life. And
extraordinary.
Last season, the most expensive player in the Pro Kabaddi League was sold for almost 3 crores. That's the scale these guys went up in. They're huge celebrities. They have Instagram followers which are million plus. They have fan clubs. They appear on covers of GQ. It's fantastic to see that growth, and it just gives you confidence to say that, okay, if you believe in a project and you invest in it strategically, and you're not just throwing money at things unnecessarily. I mean, you're trying to avoid as much risk as possible. If you believe in the product, it can do well. And I think India and its journey with sports is in the ascendancy. Yeah. Because people are believing in it, people are investing. I mean, we have great athletes like Neeraj Chopra and all. See what wonderful stuff they're doing. Yeah. That's because they're getting that kind of funding. Right. So I do believe that sports is not just a risk or a fad, but it's something that you can be a huge agent of change for.
Is that also one of the reasons why you did not want to invest in the IPL, for instance?
You know, very interesting. I don't know anybody who doesn't like the IPL. I think it's the ultimate in sport attainment.
100%.
I would have loved to be involved in it. But I didn't know at that point of time, first of all, when it started, to be very honest, it was just too expensive. I mean, I was a fledgling actor. My movies had just started doing well. I started earning some decent money. It was out of my budget, very honestly. But more importantly, I didn't know what I could contribute.
Right.
Cricket infrastructure, BCCI does a wonderful job.
Yes.
So what could I bring to the sport? What could I bring to the table? I'm not somebody who's happy going, sitting in the stands and waving hands, oh, dekho star aa gaya. No, I'm not that. If you've seen me at any of my matches,
I have,
I'm very involved. I like to get, I mean, for my teams, I've just come back from Chennai. We were playing day before yesterday. Yeah. You know, I sit with the boys, I live with them, I train with them if I can. I actually approve what they're going to be eating every day. I micromanage everything. That's the way I like to work. In cricket, I didn't know how I could contribute to that because I wasn't as well versed then with cricket as I am now. I was better versed with other sports, and I didn't know how I could be of any assistance. Yeah. I don't know. Never say never.
Yeah.
Let's see in the future if something happens, but at that point of time, I don't think I was qualified to be able to do anything.
Fair enough. Abhishek, I would love to keep chatting with you, but in the interest of time, I'm going to have to wrap this up. Just one last thing.
40 seconds left, yeah.
Correct. That's for me to finish the question.
I feel like I'm giving my Oscar speech right now. The music is going to start and they're going to throw me off.
Not at all. You know, when it comes to, you know, we have a whole lot of leaders sitting right here. As someone who works, very closely from the investment side of things with films across, what is some advice that you'd like to give leaders, especially in times like today, like Suveen was mentioning earlier today? It's so uncertain.
What advice would I like to give? No, I'd like to hear advice from them.
No, I'm sure you have
I'm the junior in the room right now.
Some learnings that you'd like to share.
No, not at all. I'd love to. The one question I'd love to always ask is, what keeps you motivated every day? Because I think that's something we all stagnate after a while. You have a dream, you feel strongly about it, but that euphoria kind of dies down. How do you have that zest to keep going? And in any field in life, it's something I've always, see, success and failure is all part of life. You're never going to know success if you've never been through failure. You're only going to rise once you fall.
Yeah.
So be comfortable falling, provided you're willing to do what it takes to rise after that. So that's fine. But the thing is to stay motivated. And I see some of the people and the brilliant work. Huge fan, by the way. Huge fan.
He also believes in exactly what you believe, by the way. He does not. He believes in intuitive leadership.
Once you've achieved what you want to achieve, which all of you have, then how do you pivot and go on to what next? How do you think of what to do, what next? And
Absolutely.
I think they have amazing minds and they're the future, and I'd love to ask them, I'd love to pick their brains, but
please do.
We're out of time.
Yes, thank you so much for this, Abhishek. Thank you for joining us today. This was
wonderful.
Thank you.